Yeah, right.
Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome October 2022, and is once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf event month. In joining me in this good endeavor, I have my buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. Glad to be back. Ready to talk about some movies in our collection. And I will say I'll let you intro the theme, but I didn't even until you said it's October. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about doing anything like horror related. But oh well, too little, too late. I guess next year.
Yeah, that is what it is. Unfortunately, I mean, Kyle and I we set out to do a theme this month with reviewing Rob Zombie movies. Not my choice, but it was a choice. But as you may have noticed, dear listener, and hopefully dear viewer, we have our graphic here in the center of the screen, which reads "Catching Up on Cinema: Tales from the Shelf," the Rainbow Roundup. And essentially, what a rainbow roundup is a bullshit string of words that I just happened to put together after Brad had suggested the theme. But Brad, would you care to explain in greater detail what we're going to be doing today in talking about our mutual film collections?
Yeah, well, I just had the idea. I can tell you, I was walking to the dumpster one day, and this idea just struck me when I was about to throw a bag of trash into the dumpster. So maybe maybe that's a sign that this won't be a good idea, but we'll see. So the idea is that we are each taking a letter of no, a color of the rain. This is off to a great start. We're taking a color of the rainbow and the color that is in our collection. So a Blu-ray that has a red cover, a Blu-ray that has an orange cover, a Blu-ray that has a yellow cover, and so on and so forth until we have a rainbow stack of Blu-rays, a rainbow roundup. So it's just gonna be a very colorful episode. None of this black and white, boring, noir cover crap. None of that. No, we're going all colors here, baby.
Yeah, folks at home, just in case you're curious, we did have some horrendous like technical difficulties just prior to recording this. So if we're off our game, that is why. Don't feel so bad, Brad, fucking up the Rainbow Roundup explanation. I know it's very easy to accidentally say Rainbow Randolph. I know that's what I want to say every time I say Rainbow
Mm,
Roundup. But I fucked up the intro. You fucked up the rainbow explanation. Like you said, we're off to a great start. But yeah,
keep it moving.
folks at home, the general idea here is that we are going to have a bunch of titles from our movie collections, DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K discs. That if you line up the spines, it'll create a rainbow. So I can't speak for you, Brad, but in my case, a lot of my decision making was based almost purely on aesthetics, where I was going for like purity of color, I guess, for lack of a better term, where it's like I was looking for the reddest of red spines that I had and the most orange spines I had.
Mm,
Basically, like the least cluttered. So if I have
yeah.
text written on the spine, of which virtually every title I have is going to have that, I was looking for either whites or blacks, like monochromatic text, set amid like a pure just color. What was your process? Did you even have one?
No, I was pretty much shooting from the hip on this one. I just kind of came in here and went and grabbed what when the colors popped on the shelf. I pulled it off, and I generally tried to match it where the spine and the front or back of the Blu-ray had the color pretty prevalently. There was one that I pulled off, and it like the spine was green, but then Shaun the Sheep movie, the spine was green, but then the front cover there wasn't a lot of green on it. So then I said, well, sorry, Shaun the Sheep movie, we'll talk about you some other time. So I didn't choose that one, but yeah, I mine maybe won't look quite as clean or pure as yours. I mean, if that maybe you have these 100% Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 would have been the red and the yellow. Not to spoil maybe what you have, but I did not go with Kill Bill 1 and 2, although I think those would probably be the most clean ones I own. So we'll see. We'll wait and see, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think it's funny that we both have yellow titles behind us that would actually
Yeah,
probably work absolutely perfectly for exactly what we're doing today, but I think we've both talked about those on previous episodes, so it's like, yeah,
that's
let's
true.
try something new.
Yeah.
Let's vary it up. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun, and plus, we finally have the video component backing us up, so I'm actually looking forward to actually seeing what these things will look like when we put them together. But that being said, I'm going to do my hosting duty here and do the custom of tossing Brad directly under the bus and ask that you please serve up your first pick. In this case, we're doing, was it red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and indigo. So we're going to be starting with red. So, Brad, what is your first red pick?
All right, my first red pick is check out this for red. We're talking the Babadook. Look at all the red there. So red, right?
What the
So
fuck,
red.
Brad? Right
So
out the
red. Look
gate,
at
you're fucking me.
all the red. But hang on here. This is this is the Blu-ray. But don't forget about the slip cover, the red slip cover. Here we go. I
Oh.
got him. This guy was
Got him.
freaking out. This guy was like, this guy fucked it up on the first one. No, the red slip cover. You can't forget about that. The Scream Factory exclusive IFC slip cover. Now, I do like this slip cover. You got the pop-up book of the Babadook in there. How is that? I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
That's beautiful.
Not bad. It's in a word or it's in a look. You can't get rid of the Babadook. Um, so yeah, this one, I mean, it's not like, again, it's not the most like you said you're going for purity. Mine's gonna be a little dirty. Mine's not gonna be very pure. I mean, like let's just throw it like, obviously if we're going rainbow, Kill Bill, throw this Babadook crack up out of here. But I felt like that was too easy. That was the first ones that came to my mind was Kill Bill, and I said that's gonna be too easy for me, so I had to go with something else. I like the Babadook. I don't quite as much as everybody else did. I don't know if you were like, I know you were live. I know you were around when this movie came out in 2014, but I remember this came out in like November or maybe December of that year, and the hype train on this one was like, kind of like it was like this was like the thing. And this I do kind of feel like this, in a way, was a big early uh, uh, kickoff movie for the prestige horror genre. I do like it. I think it works as a horror film. I think in terms of metaphorical, I think some of that stuff is a little clunky, a little heavy-handed, doesn't totally work, especially with the ending. But I do like the concept. I do think the main actress, Essie Davis, I think her performance is quite good. And it does feel like we've seen a lot of films that are kind of similar to this, like the idea of using a horror film as a metaphor for getting over grief and trauma. But this one, at least in the current wave of that, was early to the punch, and I do think it is a pretty well-made horror film. I do like watching it, and yeah, of course, I got suckered into buying the version with this on it. I mean, they made it seem like this was going to be a limited edition, and then months later, I would see like 15 of these at Best Buy. Limited edition, my ass. These were easy to find. But that is my red, the Babadook for the Rainbow Roundup.
Oh, that's a beautiful pick, Brad. I love the pop-up book slipcover on that. Like it's fitting with the content of the film, and it looks quite nice on top of that. And also, I agree with you. I do think it's a quite good film. We actually did review that for Catching Up on Cinema. I can't remember exactly when, but it was a good watch. And you're absolutely right. I do think like I'd be really curious actually to see what the timeline of the horror trends were, because trends in cinema in general, but like horror and action in particular are some of my favorite things to track in the film world. Like I'm really intrigued by the idea of following trends, like seeing the flashpoint, like the origin point for these things that give way to imitators and other movies exploring similar ideas. Like I'm really intrigued by the idea of iteration and refinement. Like it doesn't bother me very much at all to be kind of fed the same shit over and over and over again, as long as there's minor variations that I can identify and appreciate. But the reason I say I'm curious, like what the timeline was like, is because like I'm thinking you're probably kind of right. Like it was towards the front end of like the witch, and like the Babadook, and then what was what was the movie that everything was a metaphor, Alzheimer's, and like whatever, it was like a grandmother and like a daughter and a granddaughter or something, and there's like
Well, there was
icky like everything in contemporary horror is metaphorical for something, but you know that's storytelling in general. Honestly, it's just a little bit more obvious these days. But
yeah.
you know, all that means is that we're like what 2-3 years away from like, well actually no, we might actually be at that moment in time, Brad, because of the word of mouth success of Terrifier 2. We may be we may
Yeah,
be
yeah.
rounding a corner here where it's like, okay, let's stop talking about stuff and just start smashing stuff. Where it's like, let's go
Yeah.
into more just like over the top, just explicit like physical horror, as opposed to, you know, deeper metaphysical concepts and whatnot.
I also feel like this year, two examples, Nope and Barbarian, both are definitely about things. Like obviously they're not like, just Terrifier 2, but they're not about like trauma and grief. Like they're actually, it's like refreshing. It's like, oh, here's a horror movie that's saying something that is different than what all these horror films have been saying for the last 10 years. And I found that refreshing. So I think,
Temporary. So I'm curious, like exactly where we go with everything going forward. But it does feel like we're starting to pull away from that. But
mhm.
yeah, Babadook's a fun. It's a not fun's not the right word, but I did quite like it. And it's a very well put together movie in a lot of ways. Very exceptionally well acted, and also just the kind of the minimalist presentation of its horror elements is commendable. Like they accomplish a whole hell of a lot with very little. So
Yeah.
excellent red pick, Brad.
I'm also wearing a red shirt today. Glad to see you got in the spirit of things and also dressed up in bright colors. So thanks for doing that, Trevor. I
Got
got
him.
you. All right. What's your red,
Okay.
Mr. Black
Yeah. What?
T-shirt?
Hey man, it's got my family name on it. Fuck off.
Oh, all right. All right.
Like my auntie made this and put this in a care package from the island.
Oh well.
This is a special shirt. It's even
I
got a hole in the armpit.
I couldn't have picked a
That's how
worse
you know
shirt
it's
to make
special.
fun of.
I do have a red shirt, but I'm not wearing it. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I'm looking. So folks at home, if you're at all curious, and I know you're absolutely not, the breakdown of like the colors for my shelf was like, we got some deep reds going on over here. Like we got like the height of a small child in terms of red picks. About half of that for oranges. Actually, quite a lot of yellows. A handful of greens. Almost no cyans. Blues were actually hard because I was imposing a lot of like limitations on what I could and could not pick, because the format is Blu-ray. There are an awful lot of films that have blue spines, and then indigo actually, you know, it's no surprise. Purple has kind of been the in color. Like the kids are all about the purple. Like in the past 2-3 years ish, like purple has been, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a design standpoint, a lot of graphic designers, a lot of graphic design firms have been making liberal use of all manner of purples. So it's actually not a shock to me that a lot of more contemporary movies have like purple spines. But okay, enough stalling. What's the pick gonna be? So like I said, I do have a fuck ton to pick from. So this is actually kind of hard. So I'm gonna.
Oh, so yours aren't finalized right now, like your each
No,
pick?
I'm
Oh.
crafting this shit on the fly,
Oh,
as is
okay.
customary. That's why I make you go first, Brad, so I can play
Gotcha.
off of you. So this is actually not playing off of you at all, really. This is just kind of like, yeah, that'll work. Also, well, actually, no, wait, this kind of works. So you said that was that Scream Factory who put out the Babadook disc you had there?
Yeah, Scream Factory with IFC Films, I think.
Okay, well, I have here a Shout Select disc, or three of them, rather, but in one case. And I have here The Street Fighter Collection. And
Mm.
that's the cover, and that's the spine. Nothing but reds with a little accent of orange and whatnot. But this is number 65. Is a 3-disc set, which just so happens to include 3 movies, all of which are part of the Street Fighter film series, headlined by one Sonny Chiba. So that would include, was it the Street Fighter, Return of the Street Fighter, and the Street Fighter's Last Revenge. Um, these movies are great if you're into this sort of thing. I don't know, Brad, are you at all familiar with Sonny Chiba? Does the name mean anything to you?
I know the name, but I don't think I've seen any of his works.
Okay, well, you might actually enjoy these because you watch
I probably would, yeah.
you watch a lot of trash cinema.
I do, yeah.
You eat a lot of garbage, Brad. Like that's essentially what most of Sonny Chiba's filmography is. Is he's these movies in particular seem to be largely produced with the intent of cashing in on the Bruce Lee craze of the early 70s, because he was, an international icon. He was kind of at the zenith of his popularity, unfortunately, like at least outside of Hong Kong and China, around the time of his passing, which was very, very unfortunate. But in the wake of his death, there were any number of imitators that were coming out of the woodwork, and that also extended to Japanese cinema, where it's like, hey, there's a Chinese martial arts star out there. It's like we have our own fucking martial arts culture as well. We may as well make movies that center around, exploring that. And a lot of Sonny Chiba's movies are exploitation cinema. There's a reason Quentin Tarantino's a fan of his. And the Street Fighter films are kind of like my personal introduction to the guy. I started out reading about his films on a website called Stomp Tokyo. I don't actually know if that's still in operation, but it was a source for a lot of bad movie reviews that I used to read like religiously after school in like high school and whatnot. And it just so happened that with the release of Kill Bill Part 1 and 2, which Brad had actually just mentioned, the spines being colored very, very cleanly.
Yeah.
With the success of that film and the impending release of it, DVD distributors actually jumped on that because Sonny Chiba has a small role in those films. He plays Hattori Hanzo in them, and it was Quentin Tarantino's opportunity to work with this guy who I guess he kind of idolized. I mean, he name dropped him in his script for True Romance, and I do know that he has an appreciation for exploitation cinema all over the world, but probably a lot of 1970s Japanese exploitation cinema is very much right up his alley. But around the time Kill Bill was coming out, they actually started releasing in the US Region 1 Sonny Chiba movies, and I actually bought up a whole bunch of them. I still have a lot of them, and I like them quite a lot. I'm a sucker for 1970s Japanese trash cinema in general. There's a look and a feel to it that it's not high quality like in any way, but there's a grit and a grime to it, and in particular the sound of it is very specific and very comfortable for me. It's very cozy. It was back in the day when every movie had a brassy soundtrack where it's like nothing in this movie has anything to do with jazz or disco, and yet this movie oozes jazz and disco. It's like I can't quite explain it. It's like this movie's actually a World War II period piece about the Japanese fighting in World War II, but it's all about jazz and disco.
Just makes everything better.
And there's boobs everywhere. But yeah, these movies are fun. These movies are a lot of fun. They're really, really, really trashy for sure, but they all like in terms of like martial arts choreography of the day, like outside of like China and Hong Kong, pretty decent stuff. Very rough and tumble style of choreography too, where it's like you can tell some of these stunt people got their asses whipped. Probably on accident, honestly. But they suffered for their art. But yeah, I would recommend these, and also this is a timely pick, being as Shout recently announced. I think it's coming out next month. Another Sonny Chiba box set that I am absolutely going to get because it's almost. I think it's entirely comprised of movies of his I haven't seen and don't own. I could be wrong
Okay.
on that. I'll need to double check what's in the box, but last time I looked at it, it was some good shit that I knew by reputation, but had never had an opportunity to see.
The box look, is it like how many films are in that one? Does it look like a pretty good set?
Let's take a gander. Um, so it is. This could have, like, if this was a Mill Creek release. I actually do quite like Mill Creek because of their Ultraman releases in particular. So no shit talking to Mill Creek, but if it was from them, they would have put all these on one disc. But it is three
Yeah.
discs, so it is one disc per movie. All of them have art on them, which actually is directly lifted from the original poster art. Can confirm because my brother got me a poster of the Street Fighter movie, and I can confirm that is what it looked like. Um, yeah, it's a well put together package. It's not the most luxurious, but I can say, being as I do actually own these films on DVD. The transfer quality is very much HD by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. I mean, Shout Factory, they can be hit or miss, but when they get it right, they do a good job.
Yeah, it's a shame about those disc returns that they have seemingly like annually, where it's just like seemingly like once every year or two they have some print just go to shit, and then they have to do like a refund type situation. But
Mhm.
if you produce anything in as vast quantities as they do, it's just gonna happen. Best thing you can say is that they seem to handle it really well every time it does come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Brad. Well, that was my red pick. Let's move on to orange.
All right. My orange pick. Now this one, I've only seen this movie once, so I don't know how much I'll have to say about it, but it is very orange, so it does absolutely fit. It is The Hunt. The Hunt, which is written by my boy Damon Lindelof, who is just like just my boy. I mean, this guy created Lost, created The Leftovers, the Watchmen miniseries, all amazing bangers. Prometheus, which I love, and every this movie came out. I remember it was this was really one of the biggest casualties of COVID and theaters shutting down because it came out like the weekend before theaters closed. So like people were like theaters were still open, but people weren't really going, and then theaters closed. So this thing got like its release got really screwed. I ended up seeing it that year later on at the drive-in, so that was a fun experience. It was nice to get out of the house. And I actually had a pretty good time with The Hunt. I think in terms of its message and its handling of politics, it's not the most graceful, but I really enjoyed the violence in this. I thought it was overall just kind of pretty fun. I mean, it's not overly original, but I thought it had a good vibe. I really liked the main actress, Betty Gilpin, in it. I thought she was very good, and I did like a lot of the the snappy dialogue back and forth between some of the characters. Of course, my boy Damon Lindelof, thanks for those. I will say some of the scenes toward the end not great for a drive-in viewing experience, because there are quite a few nighttime scenes in the second or third act, and honestly could not tell you anything that happened in those. Could not see them at all, but this would be a good one to pop in sometime and rewatch, because part of it would be like watching it for the very first time. But it's also directed by what's his name? Craig Zobel. Craig Zobel, who is not my boy, but he's maybe like my acquaintance, I'd say. Like, we're not that close, but he did direct the movie Compliance, which I think is very effective. I'm not going to say I like that movie because that would be perverted, but I think it is a good film. And he did direct some of the best episodes of The Leftovers. So I like this one probably more than most. I think a lot of people really didn't like this, but I had a pretty good time with it.
Yeah, actually, you stole a pick from me just then.
Oh, beat you to
Got
it.
him, got him again. Shit, I'm just getting slapped in the nuts every round. Yeah, no, I did have The Hunt set aside. This was a movie that I actually wanted to watch before I bought it, but then like Brad had said, there were a lot of delays. There was a lot of like bumps in the road for the thing even getting released. So it just so happened that I was like, fuck it, I'll blind buy The Hunt. Why not? And actually, I watched it with the girlfriend pretty early in our relationship, and we both thought it was pretty fun. I was really impressed with Betty Gilpin.
Hmm.
Previously, I had only seen her in Stuber, and she has a very small role in that, but she did kind of stick out a little bit. Like she seems like a very talented actress that I just haven't seen her in much, because I think she was on that Glow, the women's wrestling show on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Is that wrapped yet?
Yeah, that ended on its, I want to say it was its third season. Um, I never ended up finishing it, to be honest. But yeah, she was good on that.
Well, yeah, that's what I heard. Like prior to me seeing her in The Hunt, like I said, I'd only seen her in Stuber, and then I heard that she was very very good on that show, and I was like, when I got to The Hunt, I was like, oh, she parlayed some of those pro wrestling skills into the filming of The Hunt. Good for her. This is part of the advantages of being an actor, is that you pick up like fragments of skills along the way depending on what roles you take. But yeah, The Hunt's fun. It's I think you're absolutely right about the political commentary. It's not brilliant. It's not scathing in any way. It's not going to change anyone's minds or get them to think introspectively about themselves and the people around them or whatever. But it's fun, and that's all I really asked of it when I saw it, and I have it on my shelf. I will say, not to spoil anything for anyone out there who gives a shit. I'm not going to spoil plot points, but they did oversell the scrap between her and was it Hilary Swank at the end of that one.
Hmm.
They did oversell it a little bit, where it's like the setup for it is actually really really good. Like the build up to it is fantastic, but it's just it needed to get more crazy. Like it needed to go totally fucking ape shit. Like they needed to completely destroy that kitchen.
Hmm.
Like that would have made me very very happy if they did what Arnold did to the restroom in True Lies to that kitchen.
Yeah.
Then you would have like a top tier recommendation from me. It's like that would be my review. They fucking blew up that kitchen. It's like, but it's like it's a nice little scrap, but it's not like a top tier like lady fight, if you will. It's a
Hmm.
good scrap, but it's not on that level. But yeah, it was a fun one. I actually was thinking about rewatching it just a few days ago. I think it was because I was looking at my colored spines at the time, and I was like, huh, The Hunt. I haven't watched that one in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly a good pick, being as you stole it from me, you fuck.
Yeah. I need to do a rewatch of this as well. But yeah, sorry. That's one orange down for you. So good thing you got some backups.
Oh, do I? No, I do. I have lots of backups. But yeah, great pick, Brad. Like I said, I probably am going to end up rewatching that one. But in light of Brad jacking that one from me, what am I going to pick here? So I do have quite a few oranges. I have one that I can talk at Brad about. And maybe Santino, if he's listening slash watching, he would give a shit. Brad absolutely would not.
Oh boy.
So I'll spare you that. Yeah, I'm not cruel, Brad. I wouldn't do that to you. No, let's go with this one. So again, not my first choice, but a good choice nonetheless. So I have here a DVD. Sorry, Brad, don't puke in your lap. Brad is not a fan of the DVD format, just in case you're wondering what that joke's about, folks. So I have here a DVD that was given to me as a birthday gift, I think, in high school, from one of my classmates, a guy whose nickname, his name in Japanese class was Ninja, assigned to him by the teacher. This kind of cool teacher. Anyway, I have here Barry Gordy's, very important, Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Orange and yellowish spine.
Yep.
Mostly pure orange. But yes, this is Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, starring Ty Mac, who, as far as I know, has done maybe something else. I don't actually know. I'm sure if you looked up his IMDb, I wouldn't be surprised at all if in like very recent years he was recruited to do somebody's like nostalgia projects or something, because this movie
Mhm.
occupies that sort of role in a lot of people's minds. Like this is very much a nostalgia movie. It's not a good movie, not at all, but it's a whole hell of a lot of fun. The soundtrack is a huge part of it. It's one of those movies where, I mean, Barry Gordy, as far as I know, is a record producer, not a film producer. And this was, I think, Motown Records basically produced a movie or a feature length music video, essentially, that also happens to be a pseudo martial arts film. So our main character
Okay.
is Bruce Leroy, who is a Bruce Lee fan, who his quest is to attain a martial arts superpower called the Glow, which has its own theme song, which is fucking fantastic. It kicks in at the last, like during the last part of the movie, during the fight at the end. Um, I forget, was it Buster Rhymes who dressed up fairly routinely as the villain from this movie? The Shogun of Harlem, Show Nuff, Kiss My Converse. I think it was Buster Rhymes. I completely apologize if that's the wrong hip hop personality that did that. But Show Nuff, even removed from The Last Dragon, is one of those larger than life characters that I think a lot of people find themselves referencing without even actually knowing it, because he does carry like a fairly large cultural footprint. But yeah, the Last Dragon is a lot of fun. If you like electro funk from the mid '80s, you'll find a couple of pieces of music that work for you in here. And also keep an eye out for baby Ernie Reyes Jr. I don't imagine that name means much, if anything, to you, Brad, but Kino from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. He was also one of the fellas on the rope swings in the Dwayne the Rock Johnson headline movie, The Rundown.
Mm.
He's kind of
Mm.
like Hollywood martial arts royalty, kind of. But he's like a little kid in this, but he completely steals the show in every scene he's in.
I just pulled up the poster. Can you confirm, is it true that our main character eats popcorn with chopsticks in this movie? Is that accurate?
I'm fairly positive that is.
Okay.
It's actually like
I'm
it's
interested.
actually somewhat ahead of its time. Like these days on the internet, they refer to people as like Japanophiles or weebs or weeaboos or whatever. In this case, the character Bruce Leroy he's a fan. Like he's a fan of what he perceives to be like martial arts culture, when in actuality he's just a fan of Bruce Lee movies, and he kind of adopts that aesthetic and that lifestyle just as a fanboy. And he kind of gets it thrown in his face a couple of times in the movie, where his supposed master is just like a normal guy who's just like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, when he gets the glow at the end, the I don't know if they rotoscoped the effects work, but it's such a cool effect. It's like every time he slaps people, sparks come out of their faces. And like I said, the musical accompaniment that comes with it. Brad, you need after we're done with this stream, you absolutely need to look up the theme song of The Last Dragon. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
It's like seven and a half
So,
minutes long.
oh, that's all right. All right. So it's mostly a comedic film then? Like,
Yeah, yeah. It
okay.
has martial arts sequences. It has footage of Bruce Lee movies in it, and straight up like sequences completely like paying homage to those films. But on the whole, it is purely stupid fun. Like it never gets particularly violent. It never gets particularly intense. Although the relationship between the record producer and oh fuck, what is her name? I ought to know this. Is it Vanity? She was like
Vanity.
one of Prince's backup singers, or like part of his entourage or something. Uh,
Yeah, Vanity's in
yeah.
this.
The relationship between the evil record producer and her is straight up creepy. But it's embedded in this otherwise like comic book Saturday morning cartoon level stupid film. But yeah, she's in there as well. I'm sure she worked for a lot of people back then. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the first I've heard of it. That's I might have to. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's a good watch with a group of friends because it's impossible to take seriously, and it is fairly fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that was my orange pick. Are we moving on to yellow then, Brad?
We are moving on to yellow, I believe. And this one, I know it's a movie that I think you and I have talked about. And I don't know if we've talked about it on here. Maybe we have. Who cares? It is my yellow pick is One Cut of the Dead. One Cut of the Dead, the steel book for the Shutter exclusive, whatever you want to call it. This is a tough one to talk about, obviously, without spoiling anything. But just to say that, to be fair, I've only seen it the one time. I do need to rewatch it. But it is one of the most creative zombie movies, but also just movies that I've seen in the last like 10 years. Like it is I knew that it was going to go into some places that I wasn't expecting, and even then I was still surprised at the turns it took, and it's a lot of fun. I think the humor works, and its commitment to the bit, for lack of a better term, its commitment to what it's going for, how long it plays out that first act before it kind of reveals what the rest of the movie is going to be. It is impressive. And I think that's the reason mainly why it works, because it does commit to that for so long. Um, it is it's a good one, and I like the steel book. I was glad when this got a physical release. I mean, let's just say I don't want to call them out on here, but Shudder, as far as I know, still only streams up to 720p. So I mean, if you ever have any hesitation about, well, you can just watch it on Shudder. You should still buy them on Blu-ray. Bump it up to full HD.
Yeah, actually, you just jacked one again from me, Brad.
I
Way
thought
to go.
this one I expected to jack for me. I think I knew you had this one.
Well, what's cute about this, and I'll actually show this on camera real quick. What's cute is that Brad and I actually both own this movie, but we own different versions of it. So Brad, obviously, he has the Shutter version, the domestic U.S. distributed one. I got mine through Third Window Films, which is an Australian publisher, but it also has a yellow cover and a yellow spine. But beyond that, I think it's basically the same film, English subtitled and everything. But original Japanese title, Kamera o Tomeru na, so don't stop the camera or don't turn off the camera. Which is interesting because that title makes no reference to anything of the dead or anything, which but yeah, Brad actually a long time ago when this film was still relevant, and I guess we won't spoil it now, but because it is worth holding back spoilers on. It is a fantastic film. A long time ago, Brad was telling me about it, but was like unable to talk to me about it because I hadn't seen it, and in fact, I hadn't seen this until about a month ago, and I love it. Like it's perfectly up my alley. I feel like an asshole for not having watched it until very recently because I was well aware of it. Like everybody in my orbit was telling me about it, and I owned it. I just never watched it, and yeah, I'm not gonna spoil everything about it, but I'll just say like it is 100% like a movie made for someone like me. Like I
Yeah.
enjoyed every level of it. And yeah, it's exceedingly well put together to the point that I actually went out of my way to, again, without having even seen that movie, kind of preemptively just buy the next thing that the director did. I still haven't watched that either, but now that I have that under my belt, I'm very, very excited to get to that, because I was blown away. Like the effort, and as Brad had said, the commitment to the bit was highly commendable, and they seem like a filmmaker who has a lot of potential to do some pretty incredible things. Um, but yeah, Brad, do you want to say any more about the film, or do you want to preserve the sanctity of it of One Cut of the Dead?
I'll cap it there. The only thing I want to say is it just made me think of, because I haven't really thought of the two of them in the same zone. Um, it weirdly reminds me of, and I'm not going to spoil this movie either because I don't think you've seen this one yet. Barbarian, which came out this year. The idea of just two movies that play with the narrative structure in interesting ways. And it's cool that we're getting that. And both of them are the kind of film where you want to show it to people to see their reaction and their realization when they finally be like, oh, this is what this movie like is, kind of thing. And that happened with Barbarian. I remember I saw it twice in theaters and I took my girlfriend to see it. And there's a moment where I was basically watching her more than the movie because I just wanted to see what her reactions were going to be. And if I show this movie to somebody, it would be the exact same thing.
God, there has to be like a personality trait or like just a characteristic of people that like when I think of like people who like make media or art or something, it needs to be exhibited in some way. Like I can't help but think of like magicians or magic tricks or something. There's like I
Hmm.
share this as well, where like revealing things or like being in the room to see the other shoe drop is so rewarding. I don't know if there is like an actual term for that feeling or that type of personality that gravitates to that feeling. But I guess you and I share that because I
Yeah.
absolutely have tons of movies on my shelf that I would love to watch again just so I could watch the girlfriend watch it basically. That's a talk for a different day, but it's just one of those things I think is really fascinating. But
Yeah.
obviously, fantastic pick, Brad. Once again, 2 for 2. You fucked me.
We'll see if I keep it going.
Okay,
Probably not,
probably
but
not. But okay, so my yellow pick, again, in place of what was to be One Cut of the Dead, I'm gonna do something easy that I can rant about, rather than some of the more complex and probably far more interesting movies I have sitting at my feet right now. I'm gonna go with Undisputed 3, Redemption. Yellow spine, black text with
beautiful.
a little bit of brick color there. But it is also on DVD, so I guess I get negative points for that. But yes, it is very yellow. Um, this is actually fairly timely, being as Scott Adkins' most recent film. Scott Adkins is this guy. Sorry for flipping you off, Mr. Adkins. I didn't mean that. Nothing but respect. He actually has very recently released his most recent film, which he serves as star producer, presumably caterer, and also surprisingly one of the choreographers, which is a credit I don't know that I've ever seen him have. But it's Accident Man 2, Accident Man Hitman's Holiday, which got a exceedingly limited theatrical release, at least in my region. It was screening like 25 miles from where I live and only in the middle of the day on weekdays. So, as much as I love you, bud, can't do it. It couldn't happen. But I actually am going to be renting that film ASAP. I'm really excited to watch it. It's been like on my most anticipated list for 2022, pretty much the entirety of the year, and now it's out. But this film, Undisputed 3, is of course sequel to Undisputed 2, which is in turn sequel to Undisputed. Um, Undisputed 3 is I think the movie that Scott Adkins often cites as like his proudest like physical achievement in terms of like
Mm.
martial arts and stunt work on film. He was really pushed to his limits in this one. This is another collaboration between him and his kind of like one of his earliest directors that he worked with the most frequently. Basically, the guy who quote discovered him, at least in the film world, Isaac Florentine. Um, he also directed the second one, but this one pairs Scott Adkins with Marco Zaror, who is a Chilean martial artist slash actor who's showed up in any number of major Hollywood films. Both of them are scheduled to show up in John Wick 4, which I'm super hyped for. That's most anticipated of 2023 for me. But this was the first time the two of them worked together. They'd worked together again in Savage Dog a few years later. But there's a lot of fantastic martial arts choreography in this movie. You can really tell that Scott Adkins and everybody else was really, really pushed to their limits. Like, and you need to remember too that this is a very low budget film, probably shot on a very hasty schedule. So when it comes to like executing these long takes of like 20, 25 movements in one shot, a lot of it was done out of necessity, where it's like, okay, we need you guys to learn all the choreography and do all of it in 10 minutes and like do it flawlessly 10 times so we can move on. And they all pulled it off. And it's not just the two of them either. Like this movie is completely stacked with some of the better contemporary Western martial artists of the time. But if you're gonna check out an Undisputed movie, this is probably the biggest recommend. Although the fourth one, Boyka Undisputed, if you're just looking for a showcase of Scott Adkins, it really is him, just like 24/7 in that movie. This is a tournament film, so it kind of like jumps back and forth between showing other performers. So if you're only interested in seeing what he has to do, that one might be the better pick. But overall, this is probably the strongest of the franchise. And as far as I know, I actually don't know if this one got a Blu-ray in our region. I'm not positive on that. Although I will point out, I actually just acquired a French-Canadian Blu-ray of one of Scott Adkins' films, The Debt Collector. As far as I know, there is no U.S. Blu-ray for that movie, but I was just digging through a record store, not even a movie store, and I was like, oh, shit, French-Canadian Debt Collector? Sign me up. $4? Sure. Will it work in my player? I don't know. Does it matter? Not really.
Does that French Canadian Blu-ray, does it have both English and French on it? Because I know most Canadian releases do, but is that one specifically only French Canadian or?
I didn't actually get it past the menus. I actually had a prior commitment, so I put it in the player to see if it would actually play, and I can confirm it does. But I'm curious. Maybe it probably does default to French. I'll have to report back.
Yeah, I bring it up because there's a podcast that I listen to, and they're Canadian, and they have a big thing where they will specifically either travel over to the States because they live close to the border, or they will order specifically from Amazon.com. So their rays don't have French and Canadian, English and French on the spine, because it is pretty ugly. If you look at some of those Canadian Blu-rays, they are pretty ugly, having two languages on the spine. Like, not a fan of that. I have to be honest. Not a fan. That's having two official languages in your country can really fuck up your media collection.
Yeah, here, let me show you. Actually, it does. It is, possessed of those particular symptoms. So check this out.
Yeah, see, that is pretty. I mean, hey, no, good thing you bought it, but that's pretty gross.
Well, I already have the DVD version of it.
Yeah,
but we're working. I actually am starting to reorganize the shelf. Folks at home, you can't tell this, but none of this is organized. It's all just like jam it in there. I actually made a shrine to Adkins where there's just like a shelf.
Nice.
So I'm working on the complete filmography. There's a couple of sketchy ones that are going to be kind of hard because not all of his films are available in our region. I think they all have physical releases, but there are a couple that were never released here in the States. Like, thankfully, all of them are bad, but that's not the point. We're going for full completion here. But anyway, that was my yellow pick. What's next, Brad? Is this green?
Yeah, green. I actually don't have like a ton of greens, to be totally honest. So this pick, I don't know, maybe you'll help me out on this one, because I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like you guys did a review of, or well, like a full episode on this, or you've just talked about it. For some reason, this movie makes me think of Catching Up on Cinema. Maybe I'm way off on this, but it is from 1953. Going a little retro on this one finally. I have the Criterion release of The War of the Worlds, which is kind of green on the front, but very green spine, as you can see there. And this one, I've only seen it the one time. It was the first time watched when I bought it. It's good. I did like the effects were a lot of fun, and I did like the setup, the alien invasion setup was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't think it was amazing. It gets very how do I say this? Old fashioned and kind of hokey towards the end. Um, but I still think it's a solid 50s sci-fi movie. Not amazing by any means, but I think it is worth watching for those effects alone. And am I crazy? Did you guys do a full episode on this?
Yeah, actually, we did. It was a.
Oh, I knew it.
Yeah, you have a decent memory, Brad. Yeah, we did do that. It was a Kyle pick. I had seen it previous to that recording, but I think I agree with you on virtually every point there. Where it's like it does kind of turn into a little bit of like a boilerplate, like alien invasion film from the 50s. You know, atomic era alien invasion film, but those special effects are like holy shit tier, especially for the time. It's one of those movies that when you do see like the year that it came out, it's like, really, that's impressive. But it's also one of those movies that, and this is like one of those things that for me forgives a lot of flaws in a lot of movies. Is like if it begins really strong, sometimes that makes up for everything. And that movie does start very well. It's more towards the end where it starts to kind of devolve into just your standard movie, with an ending that if you don't know it by now, I don't know what to tell you. like do you, like have you existed on this planet for a while? Like even as a kid, I knew where it was going. Like this is before the Spielberg remake and everything. I was like, H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds, get together, read a book. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I remember reading about that one in my school library in grade school. We had a sci-fi book that was all black and white photos, and it was like up to date for when it was published, but that was only up until like the early 70s or something, which was kind of amazing. Like a lot of my early exposure to like horror and sci-fi movies came from the school library, just like poring over the pages and things like that. And I remember seeing the photos of like the tripods and like I think they had a shot of the alien's arm in there with the veins and stuff coming up in there. I was like, ooh, that looks creepy. I need to see that. And like, I asked my dad about it, and he was like, yeah, that's a great movie. You should totally watch it. And then we watched it together, and it was like, oh, it was okay. It's like I think I like Them better, but that's me personally. Yeah. Like Them is fucking awesome. Them is very high on my list of movies that I would absolutely love to see get remade someday. War of the Worlds, they already did it, and it was already great.
Yeah, I've never seen Them. That's one that's on my list. I need to cross that off the list at some point.
Yeah, those atomic era monster movies, like I've said this before on the podcast and stuff. I used to have a VHS tape called Fantastic Dinosaurs of the Movies. It was just a half hour, 40-minute long VHS tape that was comprised of trailers for old monster movies, mostly dinosaurs, but other large insects or arachnids, or Reptilicus was in there as well, which I think is a Dutch giant monster movie. They also had Gorgo, which is the Brits' answer to Godzilla, which is actually a halfway decent movie. But that tape was kind of my entry into the world of those particular kinds of monster movies outside of Godzilla, of like who I was kind of obsessed with at that point in my life. So I need to thank my parents for getting me that tape.
Yeah.
And it was nothing but trailers. So like it was just like I filed all of those away in my head as movies that I would like to see someday, and Them was most certainly one of them. I think War of the Worlds may have been in there as well. Could be wrong on that.
I love the where am I at here? The disc art here. It's pretty good.
Wow. You can it's rare when you see art that you can hear. I can actually hear
Yeah.
the there's a particular sound effect that plays whenever the Martians are shooting their laser beams in that movie.
Yeah.
Great pick, Brad. I think Kyle may have picked up that Criterion disc. I'm not positive on that. I'll have to ask him.
I mean,
'Cause
speaking of Criterion, just totally didn't even mean to, but in their flash sale, even though this wasn't on sale, I did pick up my first ever Criterion shirt.
holy shit.
Yeah, had to splurge. Um, Unfortunately, that did not stop them from recently laying off 20% of their employees, but I did buy the shirt, so hopefully that'll keep them going for a little longer.
Yikes! Yeah, yeah. That's something I'll want to hear more about next time we talk, Brad. Like
Yeah.
whenever we do another Blu-ray episode, you'll have to give me the full scoop.
Yeah.
But that's no good. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was your green pick. So I actually have very few green picks, so this is going to be very quick and very easy for me. Very little decision making required here. So I have here a Blu-ray disc from a very small publisher that I think it's like a sub-label or something. Anyway, it's a Kraken Releasing. They put out Godzilla 1984 / The Return of Godzilla. And there's the cover art, which has horrible fonts, horrible arrangement. This looks cheap. Can confirm the image quality is actually fine, but the packaging, I don't know if that is Feast of Flesh, but I really hope it isn't Feast of Flesh, because that is one of the most overplayed fonts that exists, and at this point it's just inexcusable. But yes, this is from Kraken Releasing, and this is, as far as I know, the only HD way to get a hold of this particular film in the West. This is from the Heisei era of the Godzilla franchise. So the Criterion box set that's above my head there, the big yellow thing, that is exclusively the Showa era of Godzilla, which concluded in 1975, and this is 1984. So Criterion, like, that box set is just the cutoff date up to 1975, and the Heisei era of Godzilla films is available in HD in the West, except it's across mostly Sony, although they didn't have this one, and I think Godzilla vs. Biollante I think it was originally HBO on VHS. I do remember that, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of their subsidiaries or something still has the rights to that. So the first two movies in the Heisei era do not belong to Sony, and all the other ones do. But yeah, this is I want to say this might be a divisive Godzilla film. This is the 1984 version, which is the Japanese original, which does differ fairly significantly from the 1985 version, which is the US version. That inserts a lot of additional footage of a Orson Welles-looking Raymond Burr, who was, of course, in the original American version of Godzilla back in the day in 1956. A lot of Dr. Pepper ads as well, by the way. I'm sure that will upset your buddy who works for, was it Coke?
Yeah. Not as bad as
not
Pepsi,
quite on the same
but
level,
yeah,
but
yeah.
still not good. But yeah, apparently in the world of Godzilla 1985, Dr. Pepper has a foothold at the Pentagon. Because there are many vending machines in the war room in that film, as well as an insert shot of a Russian fella pressing a nuclear launch button, because it was the American version of a Japanese film. It's like, well, I mean, we have an opportunity here to make them look really, really bad. We shouldn't insert a shot of a finger pushing a red button to make it look like he did it on purpose, whereas in the Japanese version, it's an accident. Differences, they exist. But yeah, this movie, if you're into miniature effects, there's a lot of really amazing stuff in here. I think this was, at the time, maybe even throughout the entirety of the franchise, the largest soundstage that they ever constructed a cityscape for. This was the first time they had skyscrapers in the movie. So the majority of the buildings that Godzilla is smashing into are way taller than he is. It's a magnificent soundstage, truly a wonder to behold. And this is also a solo effort from Godzilla. There is no opposing monster. This is the movie that's supposed to restore his scary qualities. Like, this is a movie where you're meant to take him seriously as a threat. Like, he's not here to save all the children and defeat the sludge monster and defeat pollution as a concept. Nor does he dance in this film. But yeah, really, really awesome contemporary effects for 1984 standards. It was a high effort from Toho Studios. They really tried to make something special with this. Like I said, the reputation of it is it's spotty. Like, some people think it's really, really good. I happen to like it. Some people think it's like it tries, it shoots for the moon and kind of misses the mark. But yeah, it's green. I'll say that much.
It is green. I mean, sounds just like Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, and if that's the case, I am in. Sign me up. No, I mean, Godzilla, definitely, that's a franchise I need to get into, and I've been waiting until I get that Criterion box set to dig in. But yeah, so is that Blu-ray, like, is that still easily available for purchase, or because you said that's the only way to watch it in HD pretty
I actually
easily?
don't know. I haven't checked up on it since I got it, like when it first came out, because that was a no-brainer for me. Like, the only other ways I owned that movie twice previous to this. The original US VHS with the insert shot of the probably not Russian fella pressing that button, and all the Dr. Pepper machines. I had that VHS. I had a bootleg DVD with English subtitles. That was the first time I ever got to see the Japanese version of the film, the same one that's on the Blu-ray. But yeah, this was a no-brainer for me. I'm a Godzilla fanatic, and I was like, oh shit, Godzilla 1984 in H-fucking-D? Sure, why not?
Yeah, I definitely need to catch up on a lot of my older Godzilla films. Gotta get that Criterion set. What can I say? That's what's gonna kick off the
Well,
whole
Godzilla's one
marathon.
of those things that's like it's such a wide-spanning franchise that I feel like you can pick and choose whichever ones you want to watch. Like, you can jump around the franchise. There's very little continuity, like, aside from certain chunks of it. Like, the Heisei era does have nods to continuity, but having watched all those movies when I was like 11 years old, can confirm it doesn't fucking matter. like, you might miss a couple of details here and there, but it's like they're gonna get to the fireworks factory eventually. Godzilla's gonna blow some shit up. It's gonna be a good time. So I don't think you need to like go front to back on Godzilla. I think you can just like look up a list of the ones that sound most appealing to you and just jump in.
That's the only way I do it. I gotta go. You go all in feet first, or you don't go
I
in
can
at all.
respect
That's
that.
the way. How many do I have to watch? 30? Is there
There's
what 30
probably
some or
about
something?
30
Who knows? But
at this point.
yeah. So I mean, how many is that? If you're gonna watch it in a year, that's 3 a month,
I
even
mean,
less. That's not bad at all.
not to get off track, but like, folks at home, you need to be made aware. A frequent guest of Brad's podcast, Mr. Santino, has taken on the Herculean task of consuming the entirety of One Piece, which is an anime series which is in the thousands of episodes. And what's more, he is determined to do so within one calendar year. It
Yep.
is
One Piece, 1 year.
One Piece. I feel like that's something you need to say, like when you're at like a rope bridge, like a rickety rope bridge, and you like push your buddy ahead of you. It's like One Piece, 1 year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I mean, you're not trying to do that if you're trying to consume all the Godzilla movies in a year. It's nowhere near that bad. So it is doable.
Yeah, I'm still watching through all the Bond movies before No Time to Die comes out. So I still need to accomplish that task. Uh,
Yeah, because No Time to Die never came out.
yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't talk about it.
No, no. And it's not like it got delayed by a year, so I had even more time to watch them all, but Still working on it.
Well, see, Brad, I had the advantage of having a household where my dad pretty much had the TV on 24/7, and we had cable, and he was into like Godzilla movies and James Bond. So like for me, it just kind of came naturally. Like if you had TBS or TNT on long enough, one of those is
Hmm.
going to come up eventually, especially around
Yeah.
October. TNT Monster Vision was a godsend to me personally because that was when I got the TV. That was when they were aggressively throwing Godzilla at me. He was inescapable.
Gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah, thank you, cable television. Also, like Godspeed, cable television. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, is this what are you calling this? I was referring to it as cyan, but what are you qualifying
I
this as?
mean, it's kind of cyan. I mean, Roy G. Biv, I think they call it blue more, but I mean, it's not really blue. So call it whatever you want. I don't know.
It's the light blue. There you go.
I'll be these next three. The colors are all kind of. I don't know. I mean, they all, kind of all go to whatever. Who cares?
Okay.
Um. So this is my cyan or my blue or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if it really is that color. But it is a movie that I know that you have and I know that you own, but you're not going to pull it out. I know you don't have it pulled out because I see it sitting behind you. I saw it sitting behind you, Trevor. Unless you have two copies of it. But it it is John Wick. John Wick. I think this falls into the cyan enough. I mean, it's a little bit of a darkish cyan, but we're going to go with it. This is the first John Wick. It is Blu-ray only because I was not buying 4Ks when this first came to Blu-ray. But now we've talked about the John Wick franchise. You've already brought it up. I mean, it's been talked about to death. What is there to say? Other than for me, and I know you kind of disagree with me on this, but I think the first John Wick is the best so far because I like the simplicity of it. I think the action is still great. It is a lot more simple and it's not as, uh, bombastic. Like there's not as many action sequences, as many action set pieces, but the ones that are in here really work. And I do just love the world building. And again, I love the simplicity of the story. Um, I think that's what makes it my personal favorite of the genres, or of the franchise. Because while I do think, yeah, the action does get better, uh, the plots and the new characters they introduce just really do nothing for me in two and three, to the point where I really lose interest in between everything besides the action. Where this one, I think across the board is pretty great. So yeah, the first one is still my favorite. Although to be fair, I haven't rewatched two and three, so maybe I would like them more on a rewatch. But I'm excited for four as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the John Wick franchise. In fact, I just came back from vacation. Went to Portland with the girlfriend. We went to well, I went to and brought her with me, the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And I got myself some overpriced old video games. And she watched me do that. But no, she had a good time. She discovered she loves pinball. But while we were there, we went to the gigantic bookstore Powell's in Portland. Big fan of that. I've been there. I've been to Portland many, many times. But I got a book called "They Shouldn't Have Killed His Dog."
Oh, I like that.
The complete uncensored ass-kicking oral history of John Wick, Gun Fu, and the New Age of Action. Now, I'm not going to be surprised at all if this book completely sucks. That's just how a lot of these books end up being. So I have my expectations very thoroughly held in check, but that just shows how much I'm interested in the franchise and what it means to action cinema as a whole. Like its contribution is felt far and wide. Like it really did kind of change the game a little bit, especially in terms of action choreography, because we kind of started this episode, or at least I did, talking about trends in cinema and how they're very fascinating to track. Um, in the world of horror, things move very, very fast, and you see a lot of things aping each other and trying to one up each other, like the slasher genre and stuff, where it's like, oh, this one has so many more boobs in it, or this one has like a kill every 2 minutes as opposed to every 10 minutes. It's like, this one's insane. And in the world of like action and martial arts cinema, it kind of the same deal, where it's like somebody innovates something and then everybody else is like, oh, that's so awesome, I want to try that, I want to try to do that, but maybe a little bit better or maybe a little bit different. And in the case of John Wick, it really did introduce a new style of choreography that had been implemented previously but had never been done so beautifully and so slickly, to the point that basically introduced a new school of action design, essentially. And of course, I've gone on and on and on about 8711, now 87 North. They've kind of become like the kingpins of action cinema in Hollywood. Like, they're in danger of maybe overplaying their hand a little bit, where like there can come a point where it's like it's overly saturated with a certain style or a certain like style of choreography, where it's like, okay, all these movies are starting to look very samey now. It's like that's when innovation needs to step in. But as far as the John Wick films, like in terms of overall quality go, they all have liabilities, like as films. Like the first one, and frankly almost all of them, seem to peter out before the finale, like before the final act. They seem to peak early.
I would agree that the worst part of the first one is the ending.
Oh, it's terrible. He
100%.
gets in a gets in a rainy fist fight with an elderly Swedish man, as far as I remember. It's like, that's your final boss. Like, it's like, after all we've seen this fella do, this is the final challenge. And a lot of them tend to have that, where it's like they kind of end on a whimper, which is an odd structure. They very much tend to peak in the middle. But for me, it's like I guess I have the privilege of viewing them not so much as films, but as just exhibitions of action design. And for me personally, when it comes to strictly that, not the story, not the characters and whatnot, when it comes to just action sequences and like execution in terms of choreography, the second and the third ones really do up the ante considerably. And the third one, like the opening 20 minutes of that movie, are like some of the most fun I've had in a theater, honestly, because it really is like a every gimmick we can think of kind of thing, like smashed into the first 20-30 minutes of the movie. The antique store knife fight in particular, like we were just howling in the theater. Like it shouldn't have been as fun as it was, but it really was. But I'm just glad we have John Wick, because they, up till now, like we haven't gotten to the fourth one, but up till now they really do push for innovation, and they really do try to bring new things to the table every single time they're at bat. And when you look at the cast for the fourth one, like it's just like this. Okay, this is a movie made for Trevor, apparently, because it's fucking nuts. Like it's completely bonkers, the amount of talent that's smashed into one movie in its fourth iteration. It's like, how did we get here that like I'm the most hyped for the fourth one? Where it's like, we have confirmed Donnie Yen, we have confirmed Scott Adkins, we have confirmed Marco Zaror, we have Hiroyuki Sanada, and those are just the people who we know were there. There may be surprises, who the fuck knows? I'm not expecting them, but just those people, holy shit. But yeah, the first John Wick, I will admit, I guess similar to One Cut of the Dead, I actually slept on that movie a little longer than I ought to have. It took a nudge from a coworker for me to actually give it the time of day and actually check it out, and I'm really, really glad I did, because it's special. At the time, it was a very quaint, small movie, but holy shit, it is blown up into like one of the most important action franchises that exists today. Big surprise, considering our leading man is in his mid-50s by now.
Yeah, I mean, another reason why I might say this is my favorite is I did see it in theaters before there was any sort of like hype around it, and it was kind of really, I was like, went in and like, I think the reviews were still good, so I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this is a good action movie, but I'm like, I don't know, Keanu hasn't done anything. Like, you look at Keanu now, people worship the man. Back then, Keanu was low. He was low man on the totem pole. So I'm like, I don't know, I'll go see this, but I have low expectations, and kind of blew me away. So it was a very pleasant surprise. So that certainly adds to why I like that one the best.
Yeah, discovering a film is always a special feeling that does grant it some brownie points in terms of how you appreciate it. But yeah, that is actually a funny thing to imagine. That I do remember that like Keanu was not, his career wasn't what it is today. Like his overall public profile, he may have been still known as like nice guy Keanu, but in terms of like his place in Hollywood, it was very uncertain at the time, which actually may have been why it
Hmm.
took me that long to watch that movie. But again, really glad that I did. Didn't see it in the theater though. That would have been a treat.
Yeah, almost 8 years to the day I saw it for the first time, October 24th, 2014.
Wow, you even
Almost
remember
eight
the
years to the
date.
day. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, I've got my letterbox pulled up.
Oh, cheater.
It's not like that was such a cherished moment that I marked it down forever. No, I just was curious.
The day John Wick entered my life. Okay, well, so we're calling this a cyan or a blue pick. Okay, Brad, I may actually need to ask you to give me a Commodus thumbs up or thumb down to this one, because if
Okay.
you do have veto power here, because this is a stretch, and I do have a better candidate just in case. But here, you give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Okay, so I have here, directed by what's his face. I actually can't remember. This is To the Four, which is, oh, it's Dante Lam. Dante Lamb. And would you qualify this? It does have a gradient. Would you call this a cyan or a blue, or do I need to look for something more pure?
I'll count. I'm gonna let it slide. I'm gonna let it slide. My John Wick one was a little on the edge as well. Not quite as much as that one, but I'm gonna give you this one.
Okay, in the words of the immortal Mills Lane, I'll allow it.
I'll allow it. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is To the Four, which is the only cycling movie I own. Not a sport that means anything to me personally. Although I have seen a couple of cycling movies in my day. I think it was Breaking Away, was one I remember watching with my dad when I was a kid. It has like Dennis Quaid, and I think the main character is the guy who plays the adult version of Eddie Kasprak in the TV version of It. If you know,
Okay. Yeah.
Fade to Black is a horror movie that he headlines. I'm pretty sh-
Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure
I didn't know that
I'm,
was
I'm
him.
pretty sure that's the guy who was the headliner of Breaking Away. But that was a
Hmm.
fun little movie. It's not it's about cycling a little bit, but it's mostly about small town kids in a college town, like feeling stuck and undervalued by the college kids that come into their small town every year. Um, anyway, this movie To the Four, is a Hong Kong movie. May actually be a mainland Chinese production. I'm not positive. The star of it is Taiwanese, so he would speak Mandarin natively. But it's very very common in Hong Kong productions to just dub everybody. Just like, oh, you're hot. Let's just put a Cantonese language track over you. It'll be fine. Nobody will notice. But this movie's fun. It's I think there's also a Korean actor who serves as like the co-lead in it as well. Beautifully shot. I've talked about Dante Lam previously with you, Brad, a long time ago though, so I wouldn't be surprised you can't remember. But I've always thought of Dante Lam as like analogous to like a Michael Bay, like aesthetically anyway. Like not as many ass shots, like not as many greased up people, and not as many asses crammed into the frame.
Hmm.
But like his style of color grading and camera movement in particular, and camera positioning, like he likes to put cameras in gimmicky places and swoosh and swoop and have like strategically timed edits for nothing but like aesthetic energy and momentum. Like there's no sense, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just it flows, it looks nice. A lot of his films kind of have that quality to them, and his place in the entertainment industry he kind of like found himself in a similar position to Michael Bay, where he did like boob comedies and like gangster movies and stuff, and then he would shoot them in this particular way, and then at some point things changed. The Chinese government got interested in him, and they said, "Hey, you have a Michael Bay kind of style. He does all those Transformers movies. They're mostly financed by the military. Dante Lam, do some Chinese propaganda movies for our military." And he was like, "Okay, does it pay well?" So he made a couple of those. They're fun. Like they are propaganda films, but our stuff is too. But this movie is nothing special, honestly, but I will commend the cinematography and the editing. It does have a relentless energy to it that is high quality shit. But it is about cycling. And it's not exactly my favorite thing in the world. So it lost me a little bit on that part, but there is something about classic sports drama formula that is always going to hit me somewhere. Like, I'm a sucker for sports dramas. I know Kyle isn't really big on them, but like for me personally, it's a very comfortable format that I find to be very easy to slip into and enjoy.
Does it make cycling exciting?
It does, actually. Again, the way it's shot, they really do make something that in my eyes seems somewhat mundane on the outside. They do make it seem thrilling, and it has an energy to it. They even inject like some artificial forms of danger in the forms of like crashes and like people slamming into rock faces and stuff. It's kind of fun. It's like
Yeah. Does it have like a moment where before the big race, somebody on their team gets injured in a crash and they have to rally together and
you've seen this movie before, Brad.
Yeah.
And then they have I think it's a big endurance race at the end where they're in like a desert climate and like they have chapped lips and they're all like sweating their asses off and dying on the bike. And of course
I do agree though that
it has that Iceman
sports,
and Maverick kind of rivalry going on throughout most of the story too. I think there's also a love triangle on top of that.
Yeah, that the sports formula though for sports movies, it's like that for a reason. It works, and I do agree. Even the ones that are, you can tell they're playing with your emotions in a very obvious way. They can still get to you. They can still mess with you.
Yeah, no, there's, like you said, it's a reason. There's a reason it's a genre unto itself. Speaking of which, super hyped for Creed 3. We got a trailer for that recently, and can confirm, very hyped, very very hyped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, are we moving on to another blue, like darker blue?
Yeah. So dark blue or indigo, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. This one, it is a film that I just rewatched not too long ago. Film from my childhood. It is Small Soldiers. Small Soldiers, which I was very excited when it came out on Blu-ray. Been a while. Directed by Joe Dante. Yeah, this one I watched quite a bit growing up. Kind of came out at a good time for me. I was at a good age, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's obviously it is aiming at a young audience like I was, probably young males was the target demographic, and it definitely appeals to that age group. But I do think there's like even watching it now, I like a lot of Joe Dante's stuff, and the last couple decades he hasn't really done anything great. Maybe this might have been his last really good film, in my opinion. But there's obviously the idea of the military industrial complex and consumerism and all that stuff is pretty obvious, but for a kids movie there are interesting ideas in here, and it does get fairly dark at times as well. The effects aren't like amazing today, but it kind of benefits from like the like the early Toy Story thing where the effects are mostly toys, so everything automatically always is supposed to look plasticky. So actually, the lack of textures in early CG actually works, to the film's benefit. So yeah, I think it's a solid watch. Some great cast of characters too. I know Kevin Dunn, you're a big fan. Kevin Dunn is in here. Phil Hartman, Tommy Lee Jones obviously is the voice of the main bad guy. So yeah, it's a fun one. Kirsten Dunst, a young Kirsten Dunst in here as well. It's a solid film. David Cross, Jay Moore. I mean, just what a cast! What a cast!
Yeah, no, it's a. I saw that one in the theater. That's one of the. I want to say that was like one of the last like quote kids movies I saw in the theater, like that I would think of as something targeted largely towards younger audiences. Um,
Mm-hmm.
seems to have made a comeback because I think when it came out it was underseen, but in retrospect it seems to be have been reevaluated for the better because I quite enjoy that movie for all the reasons you said because it is a Joe Dante film. He does have experience with little what's it's trying to harm people like those that particular subgenre of film. So it does have a quality to it that I think maybe a different director wouldn't have been able to present. But a lot of its quality comes down to like it being willing to be a little bit mean and like a little bit scarier than your standard children's film because it is fairly violent. There is a part where the Tommy Lee Jones toy literally stabs a kid in the leg. Like he
Mm-hmm.
has a little knife. He goes, yeah, like it's not even like a improvised weapon or anything. The toy came with a knife.
Yeah.
And I think Frank Langella voices is it Archer, the the lead good guy
Yes.
toy.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, Kevin Dunn, and of course, Phil Hartman. We miss you every day. Phil Hartman's the man, and he's great in it. But yeah, the sequence with all the Barbie dolls is a classic. It's a banger. It really shows like a twisted side to a children's film that you would not find in just any movie. I've really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to check that movie out again since they announced the Blu-ray, and I remember on the Cinema Speak podcast you were talking about being pretty hyped to have an excuse to reevaluate it and check it out again. I am too. I still am because I think I only saw it the one time in the theater, but I obviously somehow remember it like seemingly flawlessly because it was good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It still holds up pretty well. I love towards the end the makeshift vehicles like and the weapon just like they do a lot of creative ideas. Like there's a lot of creative things they do within the idea of toys going to war. The corn cob skewer where one of them has a vehicle that shoots out corn cob skewers. Just clever, fun things like that. And yeah, I
Well,
quite enjoy this one. Obviously, some elements of I've been watching through the Child's Play movies. Obviously, some elements of that potentially influencing this as well.
yeah,
But
and all the dialogue of the soldier characters in particular is it's cheesy, but it's like expertly riffing on like all the GI Joe marketing shit that was thrown at my entire generation, and like they're just made up of stereotypes from like war films and stuff, things that especially as an adult you can probably appreciate even more now, where it's like they're all caricatures and they behave as such. um, and also I can't remember
mhm.
who composed it, but I remember the theme music for the movie, and it was very very good. It was very catchy.
Yeah, I do remember that on my last rewatch as well. It is uncredited. No, Jerry
Oh,
Goldsmith.
talk
Jerry
about
Goldsmith.
people we miss. Fuck. That actually,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have long said that he is what is missing in Hollywood film scores. Like his sound, the absence of Jerry Goldsmith's sound is, oh my god, it we feel it every time a new movie comes out, just because it's like there there are those chunks of time where it's like, okay, we get it, Hans, you're brilliant, but like you and your people, you need to like back it up. It's like the John Wick thing where it's like, okay, this everybody's doing gun fu now. It's lost its novelty just a little bit. Let's move on to something. Let's try to change
Hmm.
it up a little bit. And like Hans Zimmer is by no means like a one note composer, but when he has like 12 understudies who also do the same shit he does, it just exacerbates the problem. But Jerry Goldsmith, like, fantastic composer. He gave us so many wonderful themes. But goddamn, Brad, I want to watch Small Soldiers now.
It's a good one.
I'll have
It
to
is a
see
good
if the
one.
girlfriend would be interested in that one. I doubt she would be. But last thing I'll say is like it's like the good version of the movie Toys, if you've seen that.
I have not. Is that the one?
Yeah,
Isn't Robin
and Joan
Williams in that,
Cusack,
or right?
and
Yeah, I've never
LL
seen that
Cool
one.
J
No.
in one of his early roles, I think. Um, yeah,
Oh.
every time the military people show up in that movie, the soundtrack goes hoo ha hoo ha. Yeah, Toys is. I don't know who directed that. May have been like Barry Levinson, maybe.
That
But
sounds
the
right. Yeah.
production design, the mood, that is such a strange movie. I need to call Kyle. I need to get him on the line. I need to get Toys on Catching Up on Cinema, because that movie lives rent free in my head just because of how fucking weird it is. But it does actually. The
Yeah.
reason I made a joke about it is just because the broad strokes of the story are actually somewhat similar. Where it's like it's about a toy company
Hmm.
that gets there's like a power struggle, and one person wants to use the toy manufacturing to produce weapons, essentially. Very similar to Small Soldiers, where it's like a military grade computer chip inserted into a mass manufactured action figure. Um,
You guys might have to
is
do
it him? I don't know what it is about blue. Actually, that's a lie. I do actually have quite a few blue spines. They're just Blu-ray discs that have like really, really, really generic spines, to the point that's like I kind of disqualified them. Where it's like, well, I have a fuck ton of those. Like nothing about them is special. Okay, so I have a DVD here again, Brett. Sorry about that, but and also a DVD that was given to me by a dear friend of mine, still a friend of mine, in high school. So this is one of those hideous like paper cases, the worst kind of DVD case that ever exists. I have here Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, which even the cover is
Oh.
mostly blue, and the spine is as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of these hideous cases, and also a double-sided disc. I hate these cases so much. I remember
That takes me
I remember
back.
I had some that were in a not so well ventilated spot that they went to shit. They rotted. It was no good. But this movie, The Wild Bunch, is it's funny because the subject has come up in the past. Not just this movie, but just the subject of westerns in general has come up between Brad and I a few times. And it's a genre of film which is one of the most important, and the one of the farthest spanning, especially in American film history, and yet it's kind of a blind spot for me, and also Brad as well, a little bit. You probably are more well versed in the genre than I am.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Well, anyway, the point is,
Not by much.
between the two of us, we haven't seen that many westerns. I've watched a shit ton of like neo westerns, because if you try hard enough, if you squint hard enough, like Clint Eastwood, you can transform virtually any movie into a western, if you look at it from a certain point of view. But this is one of my favorite westerns, and it's also an atypical western in that it takes place in the 1900s, like in 1910s, like during World War One, essentially. I think it's post World War One or in the midst of World War One. Anyway, it's basically the story of like the last cowboys is how I read it. Where it's like this is the end of the era, essentially, and these are the people who occupy these roles as the last cowboys. The ending sequence is legendary. Brad, I wouldn't be surprised if you know what the finale of this movie is just by reputation. It's often referenced by other films. In fact, I just watched a Vestron video Blu-ray of Extreme Prejudice, which is a Walter Hill film, which straight up, the finale is a riff on the Wild Bunch. And there's no harm in that. Like, there's no shame in that. It's an awesome ending to a movie. John Woo is probably guilty of that as well. Quentin Tarantino, probably guilty of that as well. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with riffing on the masters. But this movie's great. Like, I saw this when I was in high school. I was fascinated with it again because I read about it in a book in my school library, and then one of my great friends heard me talking about it a few times, like at lunch or something, and then like for a birthday or Christmas or something, he was like, here's that movie that you keep talking about but never watch. And I was like, oh, Thanks. I needed that, and I'm really glad he did because I really love this movie, and just holding it in my hand kind of makes me want to rewatch it.
What studio did that? Do we know? Is it
God, wait till
on
I
the
throw it
DVD
on the
anywhere?
floor, Brad. It's Warner Brothers.
Okay,
Yeah,
Warner Brothers. Yeah, could be prime candidate for an upcoming 4K because I looked. The last Blu-ray came out like 10 years ago for this, so I wouldn't. That's one that I could definitely see getting an upgrade. I don't know about you.
I'm really hoping for that. I don't know if like Sam Peckinpah has a reputation or anything. Like maybe he's a shitheel as a human being. But I have noticed that like it's one of those movies that's like why hasn't that gotten a better treatment in the modern age of physical media? Because
Hmm.
there's a reason I never upgraded it. Is because I remember a long time ago or something even checking if there was a Blu-ray because I wasn't even sure. I'd never seen it before, and sure enough, there is one, but it's like bare bones as far as I know. Probably doesn't have great ratings. But yeah, if they were to make a 4K of that, fuck yeah, I'd buy that. I'd love to own. I'd love to own a better quality print of that one because it is a special movie. I really do like it a lot. And like I said, it is like whether you've seen it or not, you've probably seen things that have referenced it in some way. Um, and yeah, it's a movie that I'm really glad I had the privilege of seeing at that point in my life, like in my teens. Like I feel like I learned a lot from
Yeah, and it is very blue. It is at least based on
it.
the artwork there. So
Yeah,
yeah, good pick.
yeah. Brad's all about the games. He's a rules man. It's like it's like that's all well and good, but as long as like it better be fucking blue.
You gotta play to win. You gotta play to win. So we're not loosey goosey over here.
Okay, Brad. Last round, I think. Are we going full purple?
Yes, full purple or violet if you're gonna Roy G. Bivet. And this one, another franchise that you could lean on for this rainbow roundup. You could honestly almost make a whole rainbow out of all these, in that every entry is given a distinct color. One of these is given purple, violet. And I'm talking about the Fast and Furious franchise. And it just so happens that the purple one is my favorite of the bunch, and it is Fast Five. Fast Five, which did I steal from you? Did I steal this one out from under you?
No, no, you didn't steal it, but I do have it. Like it is there.
Yeah, yeah. Don't I haven't upgraded to the 4K. But I do really like Fast Five. I mean, it's not like that's like a groundbreaking thing to say or whatever. But it definitely because I followed the franchise. I've never like not followed the franchise. Like I don't think I saw Too Fast, Too Furious until much later. But aside from that, I saw the first one pretty soon after it came to. It was probably DVD by then. Same with Tokyo Drift. I saw number four in theaters, and then number five, and from then on out, I've seen them all in theaters. And it really is that number five that there was that feeling of like it all just kind of clicked, and they realized what these movies needed to be, and the action. They've maybe had action that's maybe surpassed it since, but that feeling of adding the Rock into the mix. I've got shit to say about The Rock that I bring up in our review of Black Adam, but adding him into the mix with the Fast and Furious crew was a huge get. Um, I like that it's got a heist movie element to it, and it's a lot of fun. I really like this one. Furious 7 is quite good as well, but definitely Fast 5 still holds the bar by a little bit for being the best of the franchise. And I don't see it getting knocked off that pedestal anytime soon. But maybe one of the final two will do it. We'll see.
Yeah, okay. So there's a lot to process. I'm going to try to slow it down a little, not like I did with John Wick where I just word diarrhea there, but I think I had a stroke or something live on the webcam. But I'm going to try to slow it down. I'm going to try to process this. One, yes, the addition of The Rock was the extra spice that the franchise needed. Like he did bring something very, very necessary, in particular at that juncture in the franchise. Um, Two, the international subtitle for the film is Rio Heist, so very appropriate that it has a heist in there. But three, yeah, I agree with you 100%. That is the point when I actually started to give a shit about the franchise, because I had friends in my orbit who were fans of the series who kept telling me like, "Oh, Tokyo Drift's great." It's like, you just like Initial D. Like you just like Japanese racing downhill. Like it's just kind of like that other thing that's way better that you like, and that's why you like that. But like the first Fast and Furious, I remember my mom was furious when we rented that, because somehow my brother got it through his head that he had heard good things about it, and then my mom was like, "Okay, fucking fine, we'll rent it," and she's like, "Who told you that was good?" Like, she was very upset. And then Too Fast, Too Furious, me and my college roommates had a lot of fun laughing at. We had a lot of fun riffing that movie because it's straight terrible. And as far as I remember, it has like a talented director. Is that like John Singleton or some shit? Like,
I think you're right.
I think it had like it had talent backing it, and it's a clown shoes effort in a lot of ways. Like they even fucked up the car stuff, where it's like it's mostly CGI, and as was the style at the time, we got to put fucking LEDs on the bottom of all the cars to make it look cool. It's like, no, that makes it look worse. What are you doing? And also it's CGI, so it's not like there's no tension, there's no danger. And also throwing more cars on the screen doesn't make it better. It just makes it more cluttered. And also there's that scene that my roommate and I we referenced countlessly, because like Paul Walker has like an ejector seat, and there's a dude holding a gun to his head, and he's watching Paul Walker like finagle the button, and the guy keeps pointing the gun at him saying, "What are you doing?" And Paul Walker like shoots him this look like a people's eyebrow or something, and the camera zooms in on him, and the guy says, "What are you doing?" And then he presses the button and shoots him out like Goldfinger style. It was completely ridiculous and stupid. And yeah, Tokyo Drift, it's pretty good. I'll say that much. It's not half bad. There's a reason it was like a complete like cul-de-sac for a very long time though, because it's very divorced from the rest of the series. 4 was just fucking wonky, where it's like, okay, the UFC's popular, let's have Vin Diesel do an armbar, and Gal Gadot is not yet a thing, so nobody cared until a few years later. But yeah, Fast 5 was when I actually gave a shit about the franchise, and I was actually really hyped when they kept doing it and they kept delivering. But I think you might be right. I think that is also the peak, where it's like it was still really good for a couple movies after that. Like 6, I maintain, is very, very good. Brilliantly storyboarded and executed finale. Like the cross-cutting, something that normally bothers me when you're showing multiple things happen concurrent to each other. It's done like seamlessly. It's beautiful in the whole airplane finale of that movie. 7, it's good, but it's also haunted by the specter of Paul Walker. There's issues with watching that movie that are unfortunately inescapable for me personally, just because I have a keen eye for certain details that are just bothersome. Also, Tony Jaa is mostly wasted in that one, that's a no-no. You can't do that. Tony Jaa is a blessing to any production you have him on. And then from there on, it's just kind of like mediocre. Like everybody's just getting older and trying less. And now we have situations where The Rock and Vin Diesel can't be on the set together, and it's really fucking with the groove, man. It's like the vibe of some of those later ones, like the 8th one, is just like something is amiss, and it has to do with bullshit on-set drama that we aren't really privy to, but at least we get to see Vin Diesel sing into a cell phone every once in a while. That's always wonderful. Vin Diesel sings, Tyrese cries. Like Tyrese crying into his cell phone, I guess, is a blessing. But yeah, Fast 5 is great. I haven't watched it probably since it came out, but I have rewatched The Rock and Vin Diesel slam into each other numerous times, because that seems tremendous. Like the choreography of it is like chef's kiss, where it's like you have two human monster trucks. Just do this. Just do this for 3 minutes, and we're all golden. Like, we're all happy. Like, don't make it any more complex than that. And also make sure to have Vin Diesel go Super Saiyan twice in the same fight, because The Rock keeps fucking with his stuff. First, The Rock fucks with his car, so he goes, Super Saiyan 1. And then he, like, mean mugs his sister or something. He's like, Super Saiyan 3, except he has no hair, so I guess his eyes turn green. But that's kind of the extent of it. Fast and Furious. Are there 2 more on the horizon? Is that the plan?
I think it's like the 10th one is going to be split into 2 parts or something like
fuck
that.
off.
I believe it's 2 more.
Is
yes.
Universal in dire straits or something? Like, do they have some problems?
Like financially or
creatively, financially, anything like that?
Creatively, probably. But
undoubtedly.
I think financially they're doing all right for themselves. I mean, say what you will about what was it, Dominion? I think it was a pretty big hit. So
yeah, I'm sure that made money, but
Minions, yeah, I mean they're
okay.
fine.
Yeah, I forgot about Minions. They're fine. They're totally fine. They could eat 2 other studios off the profits of Minions. They're fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for pulling that so I could talk at you about Fast and Furious.
Happy to do it.
Cargo Fast, the movie. I don't care at all about cars, by the way. Just so we're 100% clear. Like it's not a selling point for me in action cinema, but the things that they do in those movies are quite fun, and I do actually appreciate that they got wise to the absurdity of their own franchise. They did jump the shark at some point. Like, they're currently at that phase with the franchise where they're too aware of the discourse surrounding the franchise, where it's like they're reading the Reddit too closely, where they're winking at us. They're doing the Marvel humor now, where it's like, stop that, just do the movie. But I did like where it's like, I think there's an offhand line of dialogue or something where it's like, don't let them get in the cars. It's like, why? It's like, it's because it's their superpower. Like, if they get in cars, they can defy physics. Like, physics mean nothing if Vin Diesel is in a moving vehicle. It's his Iron Man suit. In fact, sequel idea. He just, I mean, Universal, it's Paramount, right, that owns Transformers? Yeah, they can't do that. Fuck.
Yeah, Paramount.
There's your crossover. Vin Diesel hops into Optimus Prime. I got family.
Yeah.
Or no, Optimus Prime has to say that. I have family.
I can see it.
Okay, so my purple pick is going to be a fun one. This is actually still in the shrink wrap. I haven't opened this.
Wow.
It's a DVD of a movie that I would love to rewatch, like, tonight. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's Halloween season. This kind of movie is perfect. But the girlfriend is not okay with the subject matter, I don't think, anyway. At least from my experience in living in the same home with her. So
I'm intrigued.
It's nothing special. Anyway, this is my purple pick, and it is Arachnophobia.
Yes.
And it is quite purple, and actually the spine, like the color of the spine and the text makes me think of Nothing But Trouble or like Charlotte's Web or something. I have like some weird memories of that, but yeah, this is Arachnophobia. This is an Amblin Entertainment production, so it does have some Spielberg-y qualities to it. And this is directed by Frank Marshall, and this movie's wonderful. I love this movie. I used to watch this movie a lot when I was a kid, and I'm mostly terrified of spiders. But this movie,
same here.
This movie doesn't scare me at all. I adore this movie. It's mostly fun for me. It's a Buena Vista Home Entertainment, so Disney's involved too. But yeah, this movie has a wonderful sense of humor. Jeff Daniels. This is kind of one of the beginnings of my love affair with Jeff Daniels. I've always loved Jeff Daniels and Richard Dreyfuss. When I was a little kid, like 4 or 5 fucking years old, for whatever the fuck reason, I latched onto Jeff Daniels and Richard Dreyfuss. I got my mom. She didn't do that. Like, it wasn't part of school. This wasn't like an educational outing. I got my mom to take me to go see Mr. Holland's Opus in the fucking theater because
Wow.
I just liked Richard Dreyfuss, and she's like, "You like old ass Richard Dreyfuss? He was old in the '90s. What the fuck?" But
I didn't even want to watch that. I didn't want to watch that movie when we watched it in school.
like I said, like I think most kids in the '90s probably saw that as part of school or like an educational thing. For me, I asked to be taken to go see that. Anyway, Jeff Daniels is in this, and he fucking rocks. He's great. He's hilarious. He has a wonderful sense of humor. Clearly seen on the screen here. We also have Julian Sands, and probably most important though, John Goodman. John Goodman has a small role in this, but it is fucking hilarious. Like, he steals the show as Delbert in this. Like, I'll show the back here, like folks at home. I know it's hard to see with the reflection of the shrink wrap, but he's up there in the top corner, wearing his best Ghostbusters outfit, if you will. But yeah, Brad, have you?
I like the quote on the back of the box. It's great.
I mean, that's a quote from you, Brad. that's a Brad review. That is fucking sad though. Like, folks, I don't know if you saw that, but it's great. Thrills and comedy. That's fucking sad. Like, some motherfucker got paid to write that. Like, we do two 3-hour podcasts, and this fucker writes, "It's great." And he gets paid. He gets to keep the lights on by saying it's great. Fuck that guy. Fuck NBC TV New York. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a great pull quote.
Have you seen this one, Brad?
Oh yeah, I own it. Was a childhood staple. I think I did watch it taped off television when I was younger. That's how I mostly watched it. But yeah, I do disagree with you though. It does. That movie does. I don't know what you said. It didn't scare you or something, or it didn't bother you. That movie does bother me. That movie last time I watched it, I was squirming watching that thing. Yeah, I do not like spiders, but it's a great film.
No, I in real life, I'm mostly scared of spiders, but I've been put on deck to handle enough spiders in my 35 years of life that I think I'm actually starting to get to the point where I'm mostly indifferent, unless they're big enough that you can see the details of all their parts. Like, if I can make out all the individual eyeballs, if I can see the head attached to the ass, like if it's not just a shape, if I can see head attached to ass, because they don't have a waist, Brad. It's literally a head attached to an ass. That's how you know they're evil. But if I can see that on a spider, we may have some problems. But beyond that, I'm mostly okay with them. I will say, Trevor Jones does the score for the movie, and his core melodies, it's like this brooding kind of, I don't know what instrument it is, but the major spider in it has a theme music that's really memorable. But the main thing is the finale of the movie is like one of the most epic orchestral arrangements I remember hearing as a child. You should look it up, Brad. I think it's called like The Cellar or something. And it's the piece of music that plays when Jeff Daniels falls into the cellar and he has the confrontation with the king and queen spider, as they call them. And it's like this epic orchestral arrangement that's like, if you picture in your head the concept of man versus beast, it's what the music would be to accompany that. And then you watch the movie and it's Jeff Daniels, Dumb and Dumber's Jeff Daniels, pitched in mortal battle with a fucking spider. It's great. I love it. The finale of that movie it's hokey, but holy shit is it entertaining. I'm gonna get the girlfriend to watch this. Like, she is petrified of spiders, but I love this movie so much. My grandma watched this movie with me, and she hated spiders too.
I could never get my girlfriend to watch that. Never.
But you got it.
It's
tried. Great. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's like I love you so much. I will break the shrink wrap on this $5 DVD. Do you understand what this means to me?
Yeah.
I'm tearing the shrink wrap for you. You better watch this fucking spider movie. Okay, Brad. Well,
Yeah.
would you care to assemble Voltron in the form of your stack of movies, and we'll have our last round of show and tell here.
I guess. Hang on. How am I? Is this the right? Yeah, that's the right way.
Red, orange, yellow. I know colors. Fuck off.
Green. So there. Let's see. I got mine. Get a good look at it there.
Oh, hang on. I'll give you a single. Give you a single. There you go.
There we go. Bada bing, bada
That's
boom.
Beautiful, Brad.
Yeah, it came together pretty nicely, I have to say. Even though I took a couple of years, but
mine's not as beautiful as yours, but it's not a contest. I mean,
I'm surprised. This guy, you were hyping up how beautiful. You're like every single color is pristine. There's no way, like, I mean, this guy, I thought yours was gonna be like,
well, you know, Brad, at some
7 Kill Bill.
I mean, at some point, a conversation had to be had as well, though. So I kind of made some of these choices just based on what I could say about them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not as aesthetically pleasing as yours, but okay, here I'll show off mine. And there it is.
Hey, very nice. Very nice.
It looks like candy.
I think yours looks good, man.
Yeah, it's not half bad. The 2 to 4 probably needs to be swapped out. In fact, I'll do that right now just to cheat, because I can do that. Swap it out with something a little more color appropriate. And there it is.
There we go. Okay. All right.
Evangelion 3. I'm not going to try to read that. The titles of all the Evangelion movies are just... It's terrible. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. Ask Santino. He might know. I don't know how this shit works. Anyway, beautiful. That was a really fun concept, Brad. Just so we're clear, folks at home, Brad was the one who came up with the idea of Rainbow Roundup. And this was awesome. I'd actually love to revisit this concept again, because that was a unique challenge that got us to examine some stuff that we do repeat ourselves every once in a while on this show, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff we talked about today was stuff we'd never talked about.
Yeah, definitely one that would be easy enough to redo too. I mean,
yeah,
I might just start buying Blu-rays that are cyan and just get ready for it.
I mean,
specifically just for the color.
That is a potential problem with doing this particular format is you start looking at your shelf and it's like, oh, I'm getting kind of thin on cyans. It's like, oh, I better get some more reds. It's like the balance is off. But yeah, folks at home, that was the Tales from the Shelf episode of Rainbow Roundup. Rainbow Randolph is what I just keep wanting to say. Death to Smoochie, folks. Watch it. It's great. Don't let the critics tell you otherwise. I love that movie. But before we go, dear listeners and viewers, I'm going to let Brad take center stage for a second here so he can tell y'all where he can find him and where you can find him and his super awesome podcast.
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast. So we're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram as Cinema Speak Podcast, and on YouTube as Cinema Speak. And then you can listen on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
Very nice. You got any YouTube videos in the pipe right now, Brad?
I've got one recorded. It's just a matter of editing it. But it'll be a Blu-ray specific. I mean, they're pretty much all Blu-ray specific. But Blu-ray label specific video if I ever get around to putting it together.
Well, very much looking forward to it, and look forward to Brad's review of Black Adam later this week on the Cinema Speak podcast. I, for one, am looking forward to that because that is not a movie I plan on watching, but it is a movie I'm very curious about. So, Brad, thank you for taking that particular bullet for me.
Had to take one for the team.
Well, way to go. Appreciate it. But anyway, as for myself and Catching Up on Cinema, folks at home, if you'd like to catch up on any of our other Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at catchinguponcinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias, on the Instagram at CatchingUpOnCinema, as well as the Twitter at CatchingCinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And the podcast is available on pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Bitcade. So fucking Google it. That being said, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time. Say goodbye, Brad.